Today I'm going to show you how to make this wall shelf with removable storage baskets. This is for my doll's house kitchen, but this design would work well in a number of rooms, maybe in an entrance hall or a bathroom, a nursery or a craft room, anything like that. And you can have a lot of fun choosing the colours and the fabrics to match. The cutting list for this project is in the description box below, and coming up next is a list of all the tools and materials you'll need, and then we'll get started. We're going to begin with the back piece, and we're going to start by making some pencil marks for placement of our shelves and divides. So we're going to begin by drawing a line down the long side of the piece, so turn it onto its side like that, and we're going to make a pencil mark 25.5 millimeters, and that's 1 inch from the top edge. So 25.5 millimeters, 1 inch, and then turn the piece and join that up. Put the rule just below that pencil line to allow for the thickness of your pencil nib. We're now going to make a pencil line down the short edge of the piece and just in this top section that we've just sectioned off, and that's going to be 27 millimeters, and that's 1 1/16 of an inch from each edge. So 27 millimeters there, and 27 from this right hand edge as well, and then do that same pencil mark on the line that we've just drawn. 27 millimeters, 1 1/16 of an inch, and again turn the piece and join those up. That's for our basket divides there. Leave the piece on its side like that, and we're going to do a faint pencil line 7.5 millimeters from this bottom edge. So 7.5 millimeters, and that is 19/64 of an inch. So a line there and a line at the other end. 7.5 millimeters, 19/64 of an inch, and just join that up, a nice faint pencil line there. And we're now going to make points for our hooks. So we'll start by making one in the centre, and that's in the centre of this faint line that we've just drawn. So in the centre of the width, just do a little dot there, that's where we'll put our central hook. And then again 27.5 millimeters from each end. So that's an extra 0.5 millimeter, and that's just to allow for the placement of that shelf. So these hooks here will be sitting in the centre of that divide. So that's why I've added the extra 0.5 millimeters on. And in inches, that is 1 5/64 of an inch. So a little dot there as well. And then these final two outer hooks will be sitting at 13.5 millimeters from each edge, and in inches that is 17/32 of an inch. So 13.5 millimeters, 17/32 of an inch. Like that. So quite a few measurements, but that will be, it's easier to mark it up as well when the piece is flat before we've attached the side pieces or the shelves or anything. So that's that piece, and then bring in your side pieces and again turn them onto their long edge like that, and we're going to do that pencil line again 25.5 millimeters or 1 inch from what will become the top edge. So do a little mark at each side and then join that up. Pop that one there, same with the other one. 25.5mm, 1 inch. And join that up as well. So now bring in your top piece and your shelf piece, and they're both the same. And again we're going to do that pencil line down the short edge of each, 27mm from each edge, as we've done here for our basket divides. So that's 27mm, and that is 1 1/16 of an inch from each end of the piece. Do that along the bottom edge as well. And join that up, and then when you join it up, continue that line onto the front and back edge of the piece. And again, this is to help with the placement of those basket divides, which we'll be putting down there. £27mm, 1 1/16 of an inch from each end. Turn and join and continue the line. Okay, so now bring in your side pieces, and we're going to begin by making a pencil mark in the centre at the bottom of each piece. So a little pencil mark there, in the centre of that one as well. So take what will become the left hand side piece, turn it onto its side like that, so the top's there, and we're going to make a pencil mark 10mm from the bottom edge, so where we've just made that little pencil line is the bottom. So 10mm up like that. Let me just give you that measurement in inches. That's 25/64 of an inch. And then draw a curve between those 2 points, like that. And then on this piece, the curve wants to go that way. This is our right hand piece, so do the line on the other side of the wood, 10mm from the bottom, 25/64 of an inch, and again join those 2 points with a curve like that, and that will go there. So we're now going to shape those. So start off with your scribe tool, which is a tool rather like a pencil but with a sharp pointed end here. And these are for sale in my Etsy shop, and I really like these ones because they're really sturdy. And we're just going to etch that pencil line into the wood. So you don't need to go too deeply. You're just going over the pencil line and making a score in the wood. Go over a few times. Like that. Now bring in your craft knife. It's a good idea to have a nice new sharp blade in there. We're now going to score that line a little deeper into the wood. So again, you're not trying to cut through yet, you just want to make it a little deeper, like that. And then you can actually make some cuts along the wood in the direction of the grain, just going from that line down to the bottom of the wood like that. Then we're going to remove each of those sections. So just with the tip of your craft knife, again just work round that line, just cutting each of those away. Just by cutting those scores, it just prevents the wood from splitting as you're working around. Like that. Just tidy that bottom bit up. And don't worry if you haven't got a nice neat line, because we'll be sanding and shaping that. So do the same with the other side. And then you can finish that piece off with a piece of fine grade sandpaper, and you can wrap it around your finger or around the end of a pencil or paintbrush, something like that. And just go along the cut edge first of all. And then you can actually work the sandpaper from front to back, so you're creating a nice sort of beveled edge along the cut. Do that on both sides of the wood. So you've got a nice smooth surface. And then you can also round off these corners at each corner of the curve. Just makes it look a bit nicer. Like that. Same with the other one. And bring in your back piece, and we're actually going to erase that faint pencil line we did 7.5mm from the bottom there. And if you've done those little dots, they should stay. And you just want to erase the pencil line. And it's just because it's easier to erase it at this stage than when the piece is constructed. And if you just want to go over your little dots again, you can. Like that. We're now going to begin construction, so take your back piece and apply glue along the side. Pop that back down on your work surface and attach the side piece. You should have a nice flush line along the top and bottom edge. Your pencil lines will line up. Press them together. Just bring in a spare cocktail stick to remove the excess glue very carefully. Then bring in your top piece, and that's going to sit on the inside edge of those joined pieces so that the pencil lines are facing inwards. So apply glue to the long and the short edge. And put that into place so it's sitting right at the top of the back piece, and you should have a nice flush line along the top. A little peek around the back to make sure it's along that top edge. And then you can bring the side piece in to meet it. Make sure it's pushed right into that corner. You've got nice flush edges along the top. Press it all together, press and hold. And bring in your first basket divide, and this is going to sit on the inside edge of this first line, so to the right of it as we're looking at it. Apply glue to the long and short edge. I want it to sit just on the inside of that line so that I'm sort of hiding the line as well. Okay, and make sure you're right into that top corner. You can use the little pencil line we did on the front edge there as well to make sure it's lined up from the front. Remove your excess glue. Just needs to go over a tiny bit. And as well, the remaining divide will sit on the inside, so to the left of that next pencil line. And again, I'm just checking for the nicest sort of front edge of the wood. Get that into place and then I'll turn it around and show you. But same thing again, you're just placing it just on the inside and so that it's just hiding that line. I'm using the little line on the front edge there to line it up. Again, I need to come in just a little bit there. Press that into place. And remove your excess glue. And then apply glue to the bottom of each of those divides. And the shelf is going to sit just directly below those. We've got that pencil line there as a guide, but it should just sit up against the bottom of the divides. And just under that pencil line. Like that, so with your pencil lines facing upwards. Press that into place, again make sure it's going into that corner. And then the little line should be to the outside edges of those divides. Press it up against the divides as well. And do have a peep and just make sure it should just be sitting below that pencil line. Like that. Remove any excess glue. Don't forget to check on the inside as well. And then we can attach our remaining side piece. Apply glue to these outside edges. Pop that back down and just press your side into place so that the top and bottom of each piece is level. Make sure you've got a nice flush edge along the back there. And then again you can have a little peep inside and make sure that that line or the shelf is sitting just below that line again. Carefully press it all together. And I'm just going to hold that for a moment and then grab some masking tape. I want to put one piece right over the top and onto the other side like that. So pull it all nice and tightly. Like that. And then I'm going to put a piece right over the front as well. Again, pull nice and tight. Wrap it onto the back and then you know you've got a nice square sturdy piece, and that can now be left to dry. Once that piece is drying, I'm going to prepare the top piece, and we're going to bevel one long edge and both short edges. So with a piece of sandpaper flat on your work surface, hold the piece at a 45-degree angle and sweep it towards you. You can see that's just beginning to bevel off. So keep going until you've got a nice even bevel along there, and then you can turn it and do the sides. I then like to finish that off in my hand with a piece of fine grade sandpaper, just to tidy it up. And then going to get that ready for the wood dye by sanding all across the top using small circular motions. So I don't get wood dye on my fingers, I'm going to make a little handle using masking tape on the underside of the piece. So just make a little loop, press it down, and I just attach another couple of pieces to hold that into place. And that's just because we need to paint not only the top but this area around the underside as well, which will be visible once the top piece is in place. and you can then use that little handle as a prop to stand the piece to dry. Once you've allowed enough time for the glue to dry, remove your masking tape and then sand the piece all over to prepare it for paint, and make sure you remove the pencil marks that we made earlier along that front edge. And we're now going to make the hooks, and for that I'm using a cocktail stick. So begin by snipping off the pointed end. Roll it along your work surface, that will help to cut through, like that. And then take a piece of medium grade sandpaper and holding the piece in your hand, just round off the cut end. So I'm just twisting the cocktail stick around in my fingers and sweeping the sandpaper over the top there. Just keep going until you've got a nice even rounded end. And then lay the cocktail stick down next to your rule, and I want to cut that to be about 3mm or 1/8 of an inch in length. Now you want to actually hold on to the end that you want to keep, otherwise you'll find that that will ping off and you'll never find it again. So just very carefully cut away at the 3mm 1/8 of an inch mark, make a little mark, and then again twist it along your work surface, making sure you're not cutting your fingernail off. I've done that before, like that. So there's one, and you can actually glue that into place straight away because then you don't risk losing them. So hold the rounded end with your tweezers. Just apply a tiny dab of glue. And then glue that into place over your first pencil dot. Press it down. And that can then be left to dry. Now you don't have to do it this way using the cocktail stick. You might have some little hooks that you want to use, or you could use drawer knobs. And you can either cut off the stem of the drawer knob and just stick the actual sort of rounded piece into place like this, or you can actually drill into these dots and push the stem of the drawer knob through as you would if you were attaching it to a drawer. I'm just doing it like this. These don't really have to take any weight, even if you are planning on hanging something on them, because I would normally, if I was putting a cup on there or hanging anything on there, I would glue it into place anyway. So they're not really designed to take weight. That's why I haven't drilled a hole all the way through. 4 more to go. And that piece is now ready for paint. So that's the first coat of paint on the actual shelf unit. That is now dry, so I'm going to gently sand that and then apply a second coat. And I'm also going to apply the wood dye to the top piece. And once again I'll be using the Rustin's wood dye, and I'm going to apply 2 coats of light oak and then finish off with a coat of dark oak, which I wipe away before it has a chance to really sort of soak into the wood, as I don't want it to turn too dark. When you're using wood dye, always make sure you give it a really good shake before you start, otherwise the sediment will sit at the bottom and you won't get the true colour, it will just look wishy-washy. The paint on the wall unit has now dried, and that's had 2 coats, and I sanded lightly after each coat had dried. And the top is also now completely dry, so I'm going to attach it. So apply glue to the top of the wall unit. Make sure you get it right along the edges. Pop that back down on your work surface, and we want to attach it so the flat edge is at the back of the unit and the beveled unstained side is facing downwards. So the back will be flush with the back of the unit, and you can just test that by pressing the unit and the top piece against your work surface. And then there'll be an even overhang at each edge, and that's normally the thickness of the bevel that you've done. So press it into place and then remove your excess glue. And then I've got both masking tape and clamps here. So I'm going to start by putting the masking tape right over the top of the unit. And it's a low tack tape, so it shouldn't pull any of the wood dye off. But if it did, you can just touch that back in. And when you apply that, just make sure that it stayed where it should, so you've got that even overhang at each side still. That into place like that, and that's touching nicely at the back, but if it wasn't, you can just put a couple of pieces over the back as well. And then I'm going to put clamps along this front edge. And it's important that you secure it, because if you don't, the wood will try and lift away from the unit. If any more glue seeps out, just get in there with your cocktail stick and remove it. It's easier to remove whilst it's still tacky, rather than letting it dry off and then trying to sand it away. And that can then be left to dry. And whilst that's drying, we can begin to make our baskets. So begin by applying glue along the short edges of the base piece. Pop that back down on your surface and attach the side pieces, making sure you've got a nice flush edge along the front and back. Keep them as upright as you can. And then just let that dry off for a moment while you attach the other side pieces. And then apply glue to the front and back of each piece. Pop that back down and attach the front and back pieces, making sure you've got a nice flush edge along each side. So pull those side pieces out to the edges of the front and back pieces if you need to. Carefully manoeuvre the sides so you've got a nice square box. Press it together. And that can then be left to dry. Okay, we're now going to cover our baskets, and we're going to start with the lining fabric. So to get the length of the fabric, just lay the basket onto the piece of fabric, leaving a little bit of a border here, so about 6mm or 1/4 of an inch, and then roll it over like that, and then you can cut again about 1/4 of an inch away from there. And then so we've got enough to tuck inside the basket and have a bit of a hem on the outside here. You'll need it to be 28mm high. So just, if you're using a striped or a checked fabric, that's easy, you can just go along a line, so make your little mark. And that's 28mm or 1 1/8 of an inch. So cut 3 pieces of that size. And then on each one fold over a hem of about 6mm or 1/4 of an inch. And just crease that in. and then apply glue and stick that down. I'm using an all-purpose tacky glue for this. They can be left to dry. Whilst they're drying, you can cut your second piece of fabric, and that should be the same width and about 25mm or 1 inch high. So begin by applying glue around the outside edge of your box. And apply a little bit around the outside edge of the bottom as well, just to stick that fabric down underneath. This is where your fingers are going to get nice and gluey. And then take your first piece of fabric. It doesn't have to go right to the top, because obviously we're going to be overlapping our lining fabric there. And just wrap it around. Press it down at the back. And pull the other side around. Then you can apply a little bit more glue. I'm just going to trim that off actually. You don't want it obviously coming over the other side of the box, so just cut that a little bit and apply a little bit more glue along the edge. And then stick that down. And then bring in your scissors and just cut along each corner. I just want to trim that back piece off so it's straight. And then glue down at the bottom. You might need to apply a little bit more glue. Bring in the side flaps first. And then the front and back. And you don't want the sides of that front and back flap to be overlapping. I'm just going to snip them away from the back, so you can just do like a little diagonal snip. Put that down as well. I'm just pressing it backwards from the front edge because you want to have a sort of nice flat front, and that can then be left to dry and cover the remaining two. Once your lining fabric has dried, we can make the bow, and the bow is optional. I like to add a bow because I think it finishes it off nicely, but you don't have to. Take the fabric and fold it in half to find the centre, and I'm using a dark cream cotton here. This is a crochet cotton, and just thread it through probably about a millimetre and a half from the bottom or from the hemmed edge of the fabric, and you just want a single thread in there. Open it out like that. Begin by knotting the fabric, knotting the cotton. And then tie a bow, making it as small as you can. And then you just need to keep tightening the strings and the bows. So pull them through like that, and then tighten it off a little bit, and then pull them through again, and just keep going until you've made the bows as small as you can, or to the size you want them. If your cotton starts to twist, you can use a cocktail stick just to straighten the bows out. I think I'll just go a tiny bit smaller. And then when you're happy with the size, hold on to the bow, and then you can just snip off the ties. I'm not sure why I'm using these giant scissors. Like that. And then I just like to apply a little bit of glue to hold that in place. Just focus in on it a bit better there. So I'm just going to apply some glue to the back of the bow. Where's that stick? That side as well. And be careful when you do this that you don't sort of pull the bow apart, as you'll have to rethread the cotton. And then glue that to the fabric. Sort of gluing it into a nice bow shape. Press it down. And there's the little bow. Let's do that with each piece. To fit the fabric to the basket, begin by applying glue inside the basket. Right down to the bottom. And then apply a line of glue around the top outside edge, about 4 or 5 millimeters down. And then place it so that the bow is at the front in the centre, and you're covering the glue. And then wrap that around. Press it down at the back. And then again just apply a little bit more glue to the end of the fabric. Press that down and then just tuck that all inside. If you can't get your finger in there, use the end of a pencil or a paintbrush, something like that, and press the fabric right down and against the sides. Just make sure you've got a nice neat top edge, like that. And then just cut a small piece of fabric just to line the inside. And again, it can't be seen, but it's just nice to finish it off properly. centre that over the opening like that. Use your tweezers and apply glue. And then poke that down into the inside. I've just got a bit of a loose thread in there, I just want to tuck it into the bottom. And press that down on the inside. Like that. And then complete the other two. And there is the completed piece. For a more rustic appearance you could make little crates rather than the baskets, so just make them in the same way as the baskets. Put a strip of wood across the top as a handle and then use wood dye or varnish to finish them. I think that would look quite nice. I really hope you've enjoyed this project. If so, please do give the video a thumbs up, and if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do, as there's lots more to come. And if you enjoy making your own doll's house furniture and miniatures, you might like my books. I've published 5 of them so far, and they're all available to purchase from Amazon or from my Etsy shop, and I'll pop a link to the shop below. And for now, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.